It is Friday, May 30th. We have one team in the NBA Finals. We have a second still on the doorstep. We're going to talk about the Western Conference Finals, where the Wolves go now, if the Knicks have a chance, and some NBA draft past what ifs. That's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. Let's go. What is up, everyone? Chris Manning, Wes Goldberg here on the Just Basketball Show, your twice weekly show covering all things hoops. It is Friday, May 30th. If you haven't already, subscribe, rate, review on your podcast platform of choice. Hit that notification bell on YouTube. 5-star reviews only, please, and thank you. Want to just give you a quick technical heads up. I'm currently on the road, so I do not have my microphone with me. I am using the Apple headphones, so if it sounds a little bit different,
You sound
I'm
great,
sorry.
Chris.
Thank you, Wes. I'm just an overthinker and an over-anxious human being, and I'm used to I'm used to the whole thing. We're pros at this point, but we're making it do. I have a suit on. We're ready. We're business prepared, and as always, we're powered by BetMGM.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball. You'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's start with Knicks Pacers, which we are now going to a game 6. Knicks won a pretty convincing game 5, I think, behind Jalen Brunson. I think really what struck me more about this game, though, than anything was the Mitchell Robinson of it all. I was in a text with some friends talking about this game, and they were on two different sides of this, which I find interesting, which was, on one hand, like, the hacking stuff is really annoying, and if you're Mitchell Robinson making the money he's making, maybe make some free throws. On the other hand, this is where I think I more fall, when he came in the game and just made a difference and was really propelling the Knicks with his physicality and punishing rim runs and just being that big body, it's Toppin, Siakam, Turner, like, just they didn't bring it this game. And when Mitch Robinson just got going in that way against those guys, I thought that on top of the best Brunson game of the series so far really tilted this in the Knicks' favor. Do I ultimately think they're going to come back and win the series? I don't. I still probably favor, I think Indiana is probably going to win game 6 and go to the NBA Finals, but really good performance from the Knicks. The Mitchell Robinson factor in the series, I think, is very, very real, and the Pacers have to show better than that, or they're going to have to go back and win game 7 in MSG.
Yeah, the Mitchell Robinson thing is a good call out because this is the third game in a row that the Knicks have used their new starting lineup with Mitchell Robinson in the Josh Hart spot, and it feels like they finally figured it out, right? You usually make that lineup change to match up with your opponent, maybe throw a curveball at them or whatever. It kind of felt like that didn't work the first two games. That even in that Halliburton masterpiece in Game 4, he was just attacking Mitchell Robinson and drop over and over to start that game. And I think they saw some stuff on film. The Knicks did. Responded. They played with a lot more urgency. They were closing out a lot harder. They were pressuring the ball a little bit more, pressuring Halliburton specifically, trying to kind of stretch him out and not let him get as much downhill. And whatever they found on film worked. And it might be as simple as just playing harder, applying more pressure defensively. And for Mitchell Robinson, he wasn't going quite as far back in that drop, not giving Halliburton that much more space. And that Madison Square Garden crowd just put a battery in his back.
Yeah.
And it was the best Mitchell Robinson game of the series. It was New York's best defensive game of the series by far. And I think it was really helped also, and I don't think that this should be understated, the fact that Jalen Brunson comes out and is on fire offensively to start the game. And then you got the big second quarter from Karl Anthony Towns. So for that first half, it wasn't a lot of Pacers running off of misses, right? They had to take it out of bounds. They had to get into half-court sets and all that stuff. And that just defanged Indiana just enough to the point where the Knicks were able to run away with this game. So, yeah, it was an awesome performance, and I think the Knicks finally figured out what they want to do. There seemed to be more clarity, and it's funny when you're winning how it just appears it's like a chicken and the egg thing. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
this is But it did feel like Tibbs had a little bit more clarity in terms of his rotation after a couple of games of trial and error, I think is fair to say, or a whole series really of trial and error, where you get to that second quarter. Cat has that big second quarter surrounded by the four defensive players. DeLon Wright was huge. Landry Shamet was huge again, just cutting off driving lanes for Halliburton, TJ McConnell, Neesmith, all these guys. And I think he's settled on sort of the Cat plus defensive guys lineup, and then the Jalen Brunson lineups with more of the Villanova guys. And it's been working. It worked at Madison Square Garden in Game 5 while the Knicks were in desperation mode. I share the same sentiment as you, though. I'm not sure that this means that I'm still picking the Pacers to win the series. But I'll say this, Chris, for the sake of interesting podcasting, maybe a little worried about the Pacers.
I mean,
maybe a little.
There is a weird thing with them that there's been 2 games in the series where they just haven't really shown up.
Mm-hmm.
And like for a team that I think of as being really tough, as having an identity, as being locked in, is like every kind of cliche tough guy team thing you throw out after what they did to Cleveland and how they handled the Bucks. That's a weird part of the story of this team, right? Like it's odd to me that there's this team that we think of as really quite good and really effective and all of that, and it's like, oh, we're also just gonna like kind of be passive in 2 games. Like I don't think the best teams historically do that. The Thunder certainly, like I think by comparison, the team that is now gonna have potentially a really nice resting period before the NBA Finals when they were already healthy as could be, as far as we know. Like that it's not gonna cut it again. Like it might not. It's probably gonna cut it against the Knicks. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe there is a comeback chance here. But it's not going to cut it in the finals if you play it that way. And I think the Knicks, to your point also, like this was one of those games where it's like, wow, Tibbs actually like did extend the bench in as much as Tibbs is probably comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you got McBride for 18, Harp still played 34, DeLon Wright played 10, Shaman played 14. 9 guys for Tibbs is like.
Don't tell
that's
Tibbs
like
he doesn't zag, by the way.
Yeah,
the only coach in the league who extends his bench as the playoffs go on.
Like that's 12 players for any other coach. Like that's a 12-man rotation right. For any other coach. Like so,
yeah, that's playing some of the guys from the G League. You're like, yeah, just come on.
Yeah, it's like like here's we need some mids, and we get a 2-way guy getting 20 minutes tonight just to see what he's got. Like that is what Tibbs credit. He made the adjustment to Robinson, stuck with it. No campaign, stuck with the Robinson thing even after some losses. And then, like said, DeLon Wright, Shamet, go do it for us. And they delivered in their minutes.
So, look, like I said, I think he's figured something out that works. It also turns out that playing with that level of desperation and just playing harder than the Pacers also works. And you can't fake desperation, right? So, again, I brought up I'm worried about the Pacers just for the sake of interesting podcasting. I'll say this. I'm more worried about the Pacers than I normally would for a team that had a 3-1 lead because of 2 things. They don't have home court advantage, which makes Game 6 almost a must-win.
Which I am sure will be, by the way, we should say if the Knicks go, I'm sure Game 6 in Indianapolis for that Pacers team is going to be it's going to be crazy. I'm sure it will be.
And the Aaron Neesmith injury, he's hurt, and he clearly was hobbled. I think adrenaline maybe pushed him in Indianapolis in Game 4, but he seemed like a shell of himself in Game 5. Now, again, maybe that's just a symptom of playing in New York. Back home, maybe he's a little bit more comfortable, gets the treatment that he needs going into it, etc. But then also the Knicks have the potential to have the best player on the court, right, in Jalen Brunson. Even though Halliburton has been awesome in this series, I think Jalen Brunson's still the better player. So if you look at the formula for teams to blow 3-1 leads, it's don't have home court, suffer an important injury, and don't have the best player in the series.
Well, there's one other thing I would throw out, and I say this sort of glibly, but he does have a very dumb flagrant in these playoffs. Does Benedict Mathurin have like Draymond Green do something stupid, get himself?
And he's been really important to the Pacers these last.
Yeah, and especially if Neesmith's hurt, and it's like, is there potential that like he just kind of does something stupid and gets himself a flagrant, gets himself ejected from a game, suspended for a Game 7? Like I wouldn't say it's as likely as Draymond in that 2016 run because that was like an all-time hit. I mean, Draymond hitting guys in the nuts in 2016 was like peak.
You're right.
Like,
It's probably a notch below that, though,
yeah,
considering Matherin's history. But that's a great
yeah,
call out.
yeah,
Also, I can't believe we went 10 minutes into this episode without mentioning Tony Bradley's injury.
yeah.
But that's also a thing that they have to worry about. The Thomas Bryant minutes are
They're bad,
not,
man.
they need to go away.
They're
I don't know
bad.
what they do. Obi Toppin wasn't very good, but he's better than Bryant. So you just go Toppin, Siakam, Turner as a three-man rotation. Maybe this is the point where you just really shorten the rotation. Or is there more minutes for Jarris Walker potentially, even at the 5, or sort of a 4-5 combo with Siakam together? He made a big three when the Pacers were kind of still lingering there in the fourth quarter. I thought that was sort of like a big ball three that he made.
Yeah.
Considering that he hadn't played in this series and the lights that were shining on him. So I don't know that it's one 3-pointer, but I was like, oh, maybe Jarris Walker's made for this. So we'll see what kind of adjustments the Pacers make. But it's been 44 years since the team in the Eastern Conference Finals blew a 3-1 lead. And again, most likely scenario, and the thing that I would bet on if I had to bet on it is Knicks had to win at Madison Square. They could not go out like that, right?
No.
You have to win at Madison Square Garden. You can't let Timothy Chalamet down quite like
Can't-
that. Miles Teller was there. You couldn't
J-
let him down.
Did you see the video of J.R. Smith?
Yes.
Number one, him and Kevin Love reuniting will never not like pull at my heartstrings. Kevin Love, the gray, looking incredible. Number two, J.R. Smith as Jalen Brunson is doing an interview with Scott Van Pelt, like rubs his rings and then
Yeah.
says on Jalen's like shoulder and says, "Now you have ring fever." Why is he wearing a Carmelo jersey? JR's actually come out. I don't know what he's been very like Knicks fan to me the last like month.
Yeah, and he won that ring in Cleveland.
And he won the other ring with the Lakers in the bubble. Him and Deion Waiters, I will never let anyone forget this, are bubble NBA champions.
He has 2 rings. That's crazy.
This is why. Because I think about J.R. Smith and Deion Waiters being able to say they have the same number of NBA championships as Kyrie Irving, like a lot.
J.R. Smith and Deion Waiters look. J.R. Smith deserves his championship ring, right?
Yes.
But there should be another process that players have to go through. It's like, okay, look, you were on the roster, you get a ring. Congrats. Like you contributed something on the court, off the court, in the locker room, in practice, in a film session. You contributed something to this championship, no matter what. If you're LeBron James, J.R. Smith, or Deion Waiters, you contributed something. So you get the ring. But there should be another application process in terms of being able to actually wear the rings out and then brag about them.
But it's like LeBron would never wear the ring out. Is that like Jordan would probably never wear the? It's like only like the guys. Like it is like the more role guys who are like, yeah, I'm a champ. Don't
I
forget
met
it.
a guy in Chicago once. He played offensive line for, I think he said the Cincinnati Bengals, but it could have been the Cleveland Browns, one of your Ohio teams.
But neither of them won a Super Bowl.
No, but he had, I think he had like a college ring on, or maybe it was even a high school thing. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at, I'm not going to name the bar because he seemed like a regular, but it was in the Chicago area.
Okay.
He was eating jalapeno poppers, and we were watching a ball game, and the Cubs came out, watching a Cubs game, because that was obviously it was on TV. And the Cubs come out, and people start cheering for the Cubs, right, in the introductions. And I just hear him whisper under his breath, "They used to cheer for me like that."
Oh man, that's tough.
But he was wearing his ring.
I'm really not worried about that guy,
Like,
Wes.
I was the jalapeno poppers are on me.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that guy. This is when they say men don't know how to talk about their emotions. That's exactly what people are talking
That's right.
about.
That was
Is that guy?
Only
That's
while
the
hunched over a basket of jalapeno poppers.
yeah. Fuck that's so brutal. Man, I'm gonna be thinking about that
I
man
think
and
about
worried.
him once a week.
Yeah, but J.R. Smith, I mean, literally, like that's kind of like, hey guys, don't remember, I'm gonna be champ too.
Right.
That's like really what the man, that's tough. That's real tough.
Back to the Pacers part of this, though.
Yes.
Again, I'm gonna go ahead and bet that this was the best case scenario for the NBA. Get that big win at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks could not lose all 3 games at Madison Square Garden this year. They couldn't do it. They had to win that game. There's a level of desperation. Pascal Siakam, after the game, was asked, "Why didn't you play harder?" Pascal Siakam was like, "We played hard. They played harder."
Yeah.
Which again, you can't fake that level of desperation. The Knicks had to win that, but now could be the best thing because now the Pacers get to go back to Indiana and potentially win Game 6 on their home court in front of that fan base that really deserves to see that, because they're going to be heavy underdogs in the finals if that's what ends up happening against the Thunder. And so I'm not going to just sit here and say that, hey, this will be the last nice thing that happens to the Pacers this season if they win at home.
Yeah.
But it could be, right? And so this is probably the best case scenario. But like, yeah, I'm not worried, but I would say I'm more worried than I usually would be for a team that was up 3-1 in a series.
Yeah.
These Pacers, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, the Neesmith thing, I think, just to flag it again, it's like that's a 30-minute a game guy for them in the playoffs, and he played 18, I think, in Game 5. If he can play 30 minutes but is 60%, 70% of himself unlimited, like that's potentially like some more liability from Neesmith than you would expect based on how he's played so far in these playoffs and how good he's been for them. If he plays 18 minutes and you're scrambling to find combinations on the fly to figure out what you're going to do without him, and we're like Bankheim Mathern or trying to play Jarris Wall, like experimenting, that's a really hard place to be in a must-win game. It's easier to do it like round one against like a not as good team.
Yep.
Like you can figure that out. When you get here to this point in the playoffs, I think from covering the league for a while and watching it for a while, like you can just tell that coaches don't really want to experiment for a while, and I get it because you're banking on chemistry, figuring it out like that, and it's just harder to do. Yep. So you want to kind of have a rhythm to what you're going to do with some tweaks in there based on foul trouble. But if he's not 100%, it's a huge issue. Even if I haven't looked yet, but I'm sure they're favorites for
one other guy to shout out, Nembhard. It's not been a great series for him.
No,
you're usually good for one Nembhard game. Maybe this is it. But he needs to be a lot better in Game 5 too. Stay out of foul trouble. Everybody's got to do it. I was a little surprised they didn't attack Cat more once he picked up his fourth foul. But it felt like the Pacers just sort of knew that this wasn't their night. Even Halliburton, it just kind of felt like, yeah, this isn't it for us. We'll just win it back home. Now that's a dangerous game.
I just don't. Yeah, I don't love that. I don't. Like, what do I know? And didn't ever play. I just don't. I would just try to win the game. Like if you're Tyrese Halliburton and you want to do the choke symbol after Game 1, the most legendary thing you could do is stomp out the Knicks at MSG Game 5 at home. Like that's like.
Well, let's have the Halliburton conversation, because he puts up the Halliburton game, right? 30 points, 15 assists, 0 turnovers, triple-double with the rebounds. And then follows it up with this sort of listless performance. This game is really important, I think, for Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
This is it. Like, this is the one where, like, Bill Simmons had the thing in his book where he judges a championship a lot based on the following year and the championship defense. And I think it's a great take, and it makes a lot of sense to me. If you're a team that is still together, how you defend that title is almost as important as winning that title. Because it really sort of cements, okay, how good was this team, or was this a flash in the pan? Did they just get hot in the playoffs, or whatever it is? For Halliburton to follow up that triple-double masterpiece with that stinker, to me, it kind of takes the bite out of that triple-double a little bit for me. But he has the opportunity at home to cement himself as a bona fide top 10 guy, because coming off that triple-double, people are like, oh, where's Halliburton in the rankings in the NBA? And is he a top 10 guy now? Did he surpass guys like Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, like these guys? And I think with that performance, there's clearly the performance in Game 5, clearly still room for him to grow. And the consistency, I always say that I say this with the superstars all the time. The superpower is the consistency. That's the superpower. That was not a consistent performance. But how he bounces back in Game 6 on his home court, like if he comes out and just stomps the Knicks and puts up another great game and sets the tone the way that we've seen Halliburton, frankly, set the tone these entire playoffs. I'm not trying to take away too much from him. But this is to me, it's a big Halliburton game. This is it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is in a position where he will be able to say, if he wins Game 6 or has to win Game 7, he's gone farther than Donovan Mitchell has in the playoffs, farther than his former backcourt mate De'Aaron Fox has ever gone in the playoffs, farther than Jalen Brunson, who he could beat right here, has ever gone in the playoffs. Like that counts for something.
Farther than Anthony Edwards.
farther than Anthony Edwards. And I don't think anyone's sitting here saying Halliburton is going to be like
No.
one of the faces of the league. I don't think it's quite there with him. Although I know
Well,
he's got like something where he knows how to tap into being a villain. He's beloved in Indianapolis. He's got the McAfee platform, which is like honestly like like probably underrated in how much he is like grown a superstar. And then he has like like I'm he Triple H, like the head of WWE, came to Game 5 to like watch him because of his WWE fandom and McAfee. Like he's got like something in the ether that is not
there's a
traditional.
charisma about him, right?
Yes, a coolness, a calmness.
He's in a basketball loving town. It's not a big
Yes.
market, but it is a basketball loving market, and that's really important here too. I did it. I did the thing that everybody else did. I put my top 15 together. I have him somewhere between 8 and 11 or 12. And I've always been a little bit higher on Halliburton than most anyway, just because I love players who can just dictate the tone of a game from the first tip. I think it's such a superpower. I think it's a short list. It's a shorter list than I even have in front of me of players who can actually do that. Halliburton's one of those guys. But to me, it's still Jokic, Shea, Giannis is your clear top 3.
Yeah.
Luka, Tatum, Ant is probably a tier below those guys. And then I have Halliburton in that tier with Brunson, Steph, LeBron, Mitchell, Durant, whatever. I think there's an opportunity for Halliburton to potentially climb into the Tatum-Edwards conversation.
I think at the very, very least, he is very much on the verge of being able to say, like, I did the thing that everyone says is the most important thing. I'm ahead of these guys. Like, he's at least in that one way separated himself from his peers. Mm-hmm. That's a bigger deal to me than, like, is he higher on an arbitrary list, right? Like, I mean, I'm looking at the Ringer 100 list. Big fan of the Ringer. He's at 18 on that Ringer list. Before these playoffs. Or 19, excuse me. He's behind Booker. He's behind Towns. Behind
he's
Kawhi.
Above all those guys now, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's ahead of Kate.
Brunson. I don't want to.
You did.
Okay, Brunson at 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's behind Caden then, and like he's definitely ahead of like a bunch of these guys now because of what he's done. 2 straight Eastern Conference Finals, probably about to make an NBA Finals. That's a huge deal, and he's one of the guys in League West that if you said who am I trusting the ball with at the end of the game, who am I trusting to just like shepherd me through something, his feel, his ability to create a pull up 3, to get to the lane, to find a teammate with the right pass, like he has the right skill set and the size to be a guy that I just say, okay, I can figure this out if I'm building a team, if I'm trusting a guy. Like I trust everything he's going to do in the end of games most of the time.
Yeah, and it's the passing, it's the caretaking, it's all of that stuff. It's the identity that he plays with, the pace that he plays with. The guy is also just a baller, right? Like the guy took Giannis off the dribble in overtime in an elimination game.
With confidence.
He's with confidence, drove right by him. He's a certified playoff riser 2 years in a row now. That's not a thing that a lot of players can do, right? He's a all-star in the regular season and a superstar in the playoffs. I think we're getting to that point where we have to reckon with Halliburton and just he's one of those guys where maybe we don't fully comprehend the impact. Like it took us a minute with Steph. It took us a minute with Jokic. And I'm not comparing Halliburton to those guys' overall historic greatness. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just making the point that it just took us a minute for guys who just do it a little bit differently for us to figure out just how impactful they were. And I think Halliburton has some of those ingredients which is weird because he's such a traditional point guard in that sense, but at the same time, like you see his isolation numbers and his drives numbers are elite in the playoffs, and they've all gone up in volume. He could still do some of the stuff that we're used to seeing guards do now, but in his very core and his soul, he's sort of a throwback point guard, but we just haven't seen those kinds of guys do it at Halliburton's level. I mean, he's like Isaiah Thomas, you know? Like it's we haven't seen this guy in a long time.
Yeah, well, and that's in Halliburton. Estimated plus minus from Doug's on 3 is a good estimation of a guy's impact.
By the way, for the younger audience, I meant Pistons Isaiah Thomas.
Did you see the more recent Isaiah Thomas's recent tweet about airplanes? Nope. That he farts on airplanes, and I'm like, this is why someone in my group text joked that's why LeBron wanted them gone. I'm like, I wouldn't doubt it. Weird times for a team. Weird that he wasn't in Celtic City, by the way. That felt like a very important like Celtics era to me. Yeah, and yes, I did watch Salt Lake City.
I
As a
didn't watch
sicko.
any of it.
I'm
So
not surprised. Not surprised.
possible.
Okay, yeah. Estimated plus minus. Nikola Jokic plus 6.6 100 possessions, offensive impact. SGA is plus 5.9. Giannis 5.7. Curry 5.2. And Tyrese Halliburton 5.2. He is in the top 5 of the league per 100 possessions this past year in offensive impact. Mitchell 6, Lucas 7, Brunson 8, Kyrie is 9, and LaMelo Ball at 10. Very, very impressive stuff from Mr. Halliburton, who is,
Yep.
again, just one of those guys you're trusting with over and over again. And Mr. Halliburton is his father, who I'm very glad is back at games. All right, let's go to the Wolves. Wes, you've got a Wolves take for us. Hit us with it.
I think Minnesota's the team to watch this offseason. Not crazy. I just don't see Tim Connolly just bringing them back sans Nickeil Alexander-Walker. This is a executive who traded Karl Anthony Towns after one trip to the Western Conference Finals. And granted, that was more financially motivated than anything, but also I think it was basketball motivated. I don't think that they were totally sold on the Cat Gobert front court, as successful as it had been. But mostly, I'm sure it was financially motivated. They get Julius Randle in there. They get Dante DiVincenzo. They added a couple players to the rotation that they liked. But Tim Connolly's aggressive. He's not one to just say, hey, we made 2 Western Conference Finals. We're good. We're going to run this thing back. That's not his style. And I don't know what this looks like for Minnesota, but they've got a number of decisions to make. Julius Randle has a player option. Does he pick it up and just try to enter free agency in 2026 when there's just more money out there? I think that's potentially a possibility. He might not even be interested in an extension because of that, right? Or he can pick up the option, negotiate an extension with Minnesota. I don't know how motivated they are for that, too. I think Randall had 2/3 of a great playoffs. The last third was pretty ugly.
You got to be very, I think, calculated with him. As much as you could, I think, get caught in the emotion of it and be like, he was really great for us in the playoffs. He's the best player he's ever had. Like, we vibe with him. That could be a situation where you overpay and then can't, like, flip him if you need to in the future. It's like you have to, and especially with the CBA, prudency with a guy like Randall, I think, is the name of the game. And that's unfortunate for the labor, to be clear. Like, that's not a good thing for non-superstar, elite guys, but I think it's the reality of how teams are going to operate. Or should operate.
And then the Naz Reid thing is there too, right? He's also got the option. They have to make a decision on him.
Who is more important to US for them to lock up beyond like just another? Is it Naz Reid or is it Julius Randle?
It's a good question.
I think for
every
me,
Minnesota fan is screaming right now, Naz Reid.
I think it's Naz Reid. He's younger. He could end up being your starting center once Gobert kind of ages out.
It
fits really well with Ant.
I get it. Julius Randle is so good when he is so much better than Naz Reid at his best. Like, it's not even close. Reid was a mess defensively in the Western Conference Finals. I don't really see the path to him being your starting 5. I don't know. It's a great question. Frankly, they need both of them because that's sort of the whole thing. Because Gobert is it feels like he's maybe entering another phase of his career. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be tough to lose if they do indeed lose him, and it looks like that's probably the most likely option. But like I said, I don't think Tim Connolly is just going to say, hey, let's just bring it back. But at the same time, it's how much do you want to shake up the DNA of a team that just went to the Western Conference Finals twice in a row? I think is a very fair question. But at the same time, this Timberwolves team does feel kind of far away from getting to where it is that they want to go, despite the fact that they've been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. And they also have a pretty long runway here. Anthony Edwards is 23 years old. It feels like they should be taking steps forward, but would they take a calculated step back in order to take that ultimate step forward and get the team over the top, which is kind of what the Karl Anthony Towns trade felt like in the moment.
Yeah.
It was a financial step back and a basketball product step back. They ended up still getting to the Western Conference Finals anyway, and I know people are saying, oh, it was a fake run. You know, Steph Curry got hurt. They would have beaten the Warriors if Steph Curry was healthy. I'm pretty convinced. I picked Minnesota going into that series. I felt pretty good about it during. And they're also top 5 in offensive rating, top 5 in defensive rating. They just lost a lot of weird games in the regular season. And they also got better as the regular season went on. They made a shocking trade right before training camp, changed a lot of the concepts of their team. I think they're a legitimately really good basketball team. But I think they're a team to watch. Now, what does that look like? I think is a fair question. They've been rumored to go at Kevin Durant. They reportedly called Phoenix about Kevin Durant. Do you think that that's a great Durant option?
I do. I mean, I think it's a good pairing, I think, for Ant in terms of his energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more traditional kind of big scorer type that you need. I think it kind of gives you a good runway to like age out of some salary at a certain point because Durant will hit a certain age, and you can have like a clean set of books at a certain point. It could be a good thing. I also think it's just like a little. I think it's also good for Durant. I think what I like about it. Maybe it's my favorite thing. We're in the back nine of Kevin Durant's career. I don't know if this has been like really discussed enough, frankly, in how we've talked about Durant the last like 2 years, but Kevin Durant is very much closer to the end than the beginning. This is a guy that's been in the league a long, long time. I mean, I don't know if how long he'll want to play. We don't really, I think, have a good indication, Wes, of like what he wants to be or how much he like wants to hang around until he's 40.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like I believe 37-year-old Kevin Durant. 36 right now. He'll be 37 before the start of next season. He'll turn 37 during training camp next year. Probably got 2 or 3 years left of KD. KD's best chance to win another title, and I think could kind of shape his legacy at the end here, is to play with someone like an Ant and be like the older statesman, the elder statesman with the young star. And I think those two together is an incredible offensive pairing. Like that is like it could get a little redundant at times, but the spacing, the I think the competitiveness. I think there's something I love about those guys, and I love it for Durant when he's at the end. Like I don't want Durant to just like go play for another like a bunch of older guys. Maybe that's appealing to him, but I think like the most interesting thing for him is to go with a young guy who I think he would have some energy with, and I think it's Ant.
I think the most interesting thing for Durant's career is to win another championship with just another franchise and just be like, okay, so is he a Thunder? He won a couple with the Warriors at his absolute peak, and then he kind of won this other one in this random city. Like it would just be so strange to top off one of the strangest superstar careers we've ever seen. I like the fit in Minnesota more for Anthony Edwards than I do for Kevin Durant. Watching this series, it kind of cemented the idea that Anthony Edwards needs to play in space, and maybe you build around Anthony Edwards the way that you used to build around LeBron, like when LeBron was at his peak two-way abilities, where it's just like give him space, let him go to work. And I think that might be where Anthony Edwards is headed. Kevin Durant would obviously provide that, especially if he's playing that 4 spot. Now I don't know how they get him. Like, I don't know if it's a Julius Randle thing, if he opts in and then they trade him. I don't know if they say, hey, do you want Rudy Gobert to solve your center need for a couple of years? But there's pathways. So Kevin Durant's one guy. I don't know what else, but if it's not Durant, and Durant has a lot of leverage here, obviously, too, because he could be a free agent in 2026. And if he's interested in going to Minnesota, great. I don't know. I have no idea what Kevin Durant wants. I do know this. He's always picked big markets when he's had a say. He picked the Bay Area, he picked Brooklyn, and he didn't exactly pick Phoenix, but Phoenix has enough proximity to Los Angeles that it's like close enough. Minnesota's not that. So we'll see. But I do think that they have other decisions that they have to make. Like what's next for Rudy Gobert? He was bad. He got outplayed by Isaiah Hartenstein in the
Didn't
Western
dribble.
Conference
It didn't feel like he dribbled for like 2 rounds.
Didn't dribble. He's having a hard time catching. And I wonder, like, again, when you're thinking about the best teammates around Anthony Edwards, he needs another scorer. And Julius Randle not being good really hurt them. He needs a center who can either space the floor and protect the rim, which is hard to find, or a guy who could just catch a lob and create some vertical spacing for him, because that's not Gobert either. Gobert has been fine, but that also feels like a spot that they could look to upgrade to. So who knows?
I think they have a Mike Conley question. I think as well. It's
Yep.
like I think that's part of this. Well, Mike Conley's 37 years old. It's not like Mike Conley is getting any younger. I think you saw some limitations as good as he was in spurts for these playoffs. Like I think that was like a real thing. I don't think there's like a clear thing you can do with him at this point, which is a challenge. And maybe he retires. Like I don't know. Like he'll be 38 when next season starts, Wes. 38.
Yeah, the timeline part of this is really weird because they just drafted Rob Dillingham to sort of be the heir apparent there, but can they wait on Dillingham to get good for a team that's been to the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row? Or is Dillingham more of a trade piece? Can they put Dillingham in something with something else to go get their next point guard, right? I've seen it on Twitter. It's like, would you do a Jaden McDaniels for Darius Garland swap? You know, like, okay, that's...
I think
I can ask you about that.
I think they have to give up a lot more than they have to give you some stuff. I love Jay McDaniels.
It would be more stuff than that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I think at a certain point as well, once you start trading your Jaden McDaniels, you start trading picks and like finding stuff to trade. Mm-hmm. I think you start diluting the team in a way that's like really hard to. It's really hard to recover from. You have to like. It is an incredibly hard needle to thread for them, but you have to like find ways to level up without like dilute. Like maybe you take like a half step back one year just to kind of reset money, but once you start like trading stuff for things and you start diluting everything, you become a worse team. Like you want to find a point guard who's maybe 80% of Darius Garland, but allows you to keep Jaden McDaniels. I don't know who that is, but I think that's preferable than saying we trade Jaden and stuff to get Darius Garland.
I agree. That's why I said like you got to be careful with the DNA of this team. If the plan is to stay competitive, you can't just start swapping pieces in and out because then you just end up doing what, I don't know, Phoenix has been for the last couple of years with their role players or you know, any number of teams where, you know, Brooklyn when Durant was there and just some of these other teams.
I mean, the
LeBron
Phoenix
years in Cleveland.
If I was an NBA, this is oversimplifying it and it's sort of a bit West, but if I was an NBA GM, I would have like a flow chart in front of me on my wall at all times that is like, does this move put us at risk of being the Matt Ishbia beginning era Phoenix Suns? And if I think the answer is yes, I'm probably not making that move.
Right.
You get there, you're screwed. You're screwed for 5 years.
Yeah, and like you can't. The DNA of a team, the culture of a team, that heartbeat of a team, whatever we want to call it, this thing this untangible thing, it's really important, and that's part of the GM's job is to recognize it and recognize what it really is, and when it needs to stay together and when it needs to be changed, right? You think about when Boston flipped Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis in that 3-team deal a couple of summers ago, and you had a lot of Celtics or a lot of just people questioning the trade because, oh, Marcus Smart, he's the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics, and trading him is really risky. And my point that entire time was, well, wasn't the heart and soul of the Celtics the thing that we questioned? The fact that this team couldn't get over the hump and didn't seem to have this killer instinct, that's the heart and soul of the team. So if Marcus Smart is the heart and soul of the team, give the team a heart transplant. And that's what they did, right? And they ended up winning a championship. So I was right. Another win for Wes. But sometimes making those trades are incredibly detrimental and set you back and just change the entire shape of a team in a way that you just can't quite get it back.
Yeah. Very tough summer for them. Very curious to see what they do. I think once maybe we have like a bunch of episodes on a long theoretical list of stuff. I think teams that have like once we get like probably through the draft, offseason preview, it's probably like what are the teams you're actually looking for, and I think the Wolves will be up there. I think they're worth coming back to. Wes, we're gonna end with something fun today.
I love it.
Which is I was in Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, was quoted in this new Seth Wickersham book that's coming out about the quarterback. And one of the excerpts they ran was that he didn't want to. Him and his dad were very concerned about him going to the Bears. Mm-hmm. He really, incidentally, wanted to go to the Vikings. Really good offense for him, play action, all that stuff. And it's resulted in him having to give like a 2.5-minute like prepped answer to saying I did really want to be here, like do damage control, but it like offered a real insight. What interested me about it wasn't the drama of it necessarily. It was more. We got real insight into what these prospects, these high-level prospects, with some leverage, not unlimited leverage, but some, think when they're going through the draft process. We rarely get this. We rarely get it from teams anymore as much. Like, it's all leaks, and it's all like kind of like second, third-hand information at a certain point. It's really hard to know. But I loved how we got candidness into this process because it's not like Cooper Flagg, like he's going to go to the Mavs, right? Mm-hmm. but he doesn't get drafted and immediately like like it doesn't work the way where him and his team and his agency and his family just say like, okay, we have no concerns. Like you are trying to figure it out. Like it is like when you or I are applying for a job, you're weighing the pros and cons. You're trying to like get in the mind of it. There is like a very human element to it that I don't think gets brought up enough. So it made me think, what are the NBA ones in the past you would have liked insight into? Like who were the players that in the last whenever, but I kind of kept mine at least in the last couple of years that you would have wanted to know like really what the draft process was like for them where they thought they wanted to go.
The one that immediately jumped to mind was Zion getting drafted by the Pelicans.
This is on the list, and if it's not on the list, I think it's for anyone like doing their own list at home, I think it's a huge mistake. I think this is the fascinating one to me.
Superstar in high school, goes to Duke in part to be a superstar. I would argue is the biggest star Duke ever had while in college. He was bigger than Cooper Flagg in terms of TV ratings and the attention. Doesn't mean he's the best, but he was the biggest.
There was nothing like with Cooper Flagg, Zion shoe breaking in a game and it being like
you remember that moment.
Yeah, I remember where it was
in college basketball more than I would argue any other college basketball moment over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It was huge. He was such a big story. So star in high school, superstar in college, gets drafted to arguably the worst market in the NBA.
Yeah.
In New Orleans.
With as far as we understand it, like not, and this has been true for a while, I think like not the best like medical team, which will I think factor into all of this.
So I would have loved to know if he was rooting for somebody else on lottery night to win that lottery, and if he was a little bummed when the Pelicans ended up getting the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. I wondered if him and his team like would have been like, we don't want to do this. Like if they how much pressure they would have tried to yield. Here.
Like we saw Eli Manning do this a few years ago, where he didn't want to get drafted to San Diego and kind of figured out a way to get to New York, and then they make the Phillip Rivers swap.
Which, by the way, I'm in San Diego right now. I don't really understand. I know it's the organization, great city. I don't understand.
I think it was more about New York than it was San Diego, but
yeah.
You're seeing right now with the draft class withdrawals, the decision deadline, players choosing to go back to college who are not lottery picks, but first-round picks because the NIL money is just better than what you would get in the middle of the first round. And they're betting on, I don't know if they're betting on anything. Maybe they're just saying, this check is bigger, I'll take this one.
Well, I do wonder if wonder if the development thing matters for them, right? Right? It's like, could I like not play a lot and maybe have some time in the G League and like do that whole thing and like be very
develop another year in college and potentially be a lottery pick next year.
Where like I matter on this team in a real way and I'm gonna be like emphasized in a way that's gonna be better for me as a player. I think that's got to be a part of the calculus, particularly when the money matches up.
Yeah, and one thing that's very true about basketball players almost universally, whether or not you're playing it on a court near you in a pickup game or in the NBA, basketball players want to play. That's the only thing that basketball players really want at the end of the day. They want to play basketball. They want to play competitive basketball. So if they think that they're going to get drafted and just be sitting on the bench for a year, making less money than they would with an NIL deal, this kid from UAB is making like a ton of money to transfer, I think, or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's just a lot of guys going back for the NIL money. And what's interesting will be, okay, well, we know how the draft feels about upperclassmen. The NBA teams tend to like 18, 19-year-olds more than 21-year-olds. So does that actually hurt their draft stock if they even have a better year than they did previous just because they're a year older? I don't know. I think it's a fair question, but this is NIL money and what it's doing. But I wonder if this opens up the door potentially, and the reason I brought that up is to play that game.
Yeah.
Because if Cooper Flagg just had some sort of aversion to Dallas for whatever reason, he could say...
he's like, hey, I saw they traded Luka and how like crazy this organization seems. I don't want to do this.
Possibly, yeah. He's like, I want to finish out my rookie contract, on one team. No, I mean he could just, if for whatever reason he had an aversion to Dallas, he could threaten them by I'm just gonna go back to Duke. Right? He said, don't draft me, or if you do draft me, or trade the pick. If you don't trade the pick before the deadline, I'm going back to Duke.
Yeah.
And if he were to do that, which no reason for him to do that, but if he were to do that, he would have a lot of leverage. Dallas would almost have to trade that pick
Yeah, it gets challenging into like, what if they traded to a team that he also doesn't want to go to? That's like actually like a worse situation. It's like, oh shit, I'm gonna play for the Hornets now.
Right. That's what. Yeah, you got to read the room a little bit. You're like, oh
Yeah,
well, are the Lakers gonna move up or?
it's like on one hand, I can play with Kyrie and Anthony Davis and like figure it out that way, and Derek Lively, or it can be like Mark Williams and Marcus Smart on the Wizards.
Right.
Because it would be one of those bad teams.
Dallas winning the
would
lottery
do it.
did really work out for Cooper Flag because now he gets to go play with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving and stuff like that with a market that is respectable. Like had Utah won the lottery, I don't know, maybe.
They're like, hey Cooper, you're gonna play 40 games as a rookie. He's like, what?
Right.
My first one is that isn't Zion is SGA in 2018. Here's why. Because this was like deep. Chris, I'm not gonna refer to myself in third person, but when I was writing for Fear the Sword and running the site at SB Nation, keeping up with all the mocks is like half the job of a blogger at a certain point. It's like, who's Gavoni have the Cavs? Who's Schmitz at the time? For the longest time in that draft process, the Cavs, who had the 8th pick, were mocked to take Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at number 8. They ended up obviously taking Colin Sexton. Pre-draft, there was a little bit of buzz locally, and Gavoni had this, I think, most notably, that Shea and his camp did not want to go to Cleveland.
Interesting.
Cavs take Sexton. I want to know, like, A, how true that was, and B, how that worked. What did it, like, number one, what did teams like really think of SGA at the time, knowing what we know now and where he went to? Obviously, because it's a loaded draft. 8-1, Bagley 2, Luka 3, Jaren Jackson 4, Trae Young 5, Bamba 6, Carter Jr. 7, Sexton 8, Kevin Knox 9, Mikal Bridges 10, SGA 11. Like, that's a really interesting 11 picks. He's either the first or the second guy you're picking on the draft. I think Luka's probably still going 1. I think SGA is 2. But like, if someone said I'm taking SGA 1 at this point, I'd be like, yeah, I totally get how you do that. What did teams A think of him? And 2, if there's any truth to that he didn't want to play for the Cavs, what was the reason? Was it the market? He ended up in LA, so that could be part of it. There's something there that it was just like a day before day of like Gavoni mock switch that I'm curious about. That's a very hyper specific one, but it's one of those things that's been like seared into my brain.
That's a great one. Yeah, it starts to get tricky when you get to like the middle of the lottery and stuff for these prospects because you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you think, maybe this will be my last one, do you think that every top 5-ish guy in a draft, and certainly every number 1 guy in the draft on draft lottery night is just hoping that the Kings don't get the pick? Like if they could choose one thing to not happen, I just don't want to end up in Sacramento.
Well, maybe, but I think there's also like other teams contending for the belt. No, like I don't know how many teams look at Utah. Like NBA players don't love Utah in the first place.
Talk yourself into coaching, good ownership group.
Yeah, but NBA players just like don't really want to go to Utah. It's like a thing. Like we've talked about this. Like NBA players don't love being in Utah historically.
No, I agree. But that's what I'm saying. Like if you had to pick one though, like if you're going to be a top pick, there's the inherent risk of I might end up in Utah or I might end up in a market that I don't like, Charlotte or something like that. But Utah has at least been to the finals in their franchise history. Like you can conceivably win. They have
an ownership group that like seems to really like have a vision for eventually winning, even if it's not there.
But if you get drafted to Sacramento, you're kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll have 3 coaches in my rookie contract. I'll probably have a teammate that I love, and then they'll trade him away.
Yeah, or like you'll have maybe you'll bond with that teammate, and then it'd be like, it's actually not a big deal. I don't follow him on Instagram anymore. Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's the cursed franchise of the NBA.
I got one more.
Okay.
Remember when Zach LaVine really reacted? This is a little further back, but when he vociferously reacted to getting drafted by the Wolves.
Yep.
I just want true serum. Zach LaVine, were you mad about going to the Wolves, or were you just like having like a weird emotional moment that happened to look a certain way?
Yeah. Well, he says since then that he was just emotional in the moment. And
but like, what is he going to say? It's like, actually, I hate like. Well, and you could now.
That was my and I don't buy it.
Yeah.
He didn't want to get. Which this is one of the markets that I never fully understood. why there is the level of aversion by NBA players that there is for Minnesota. I understand the cold, right? And that's probably what it is. But they do talk like Minnesota. They talk about Minnesota like it's Salt Lake City. And that's not fair.
Not. Yeah. Yeah.
Minneapolis is a cool town. There's things to do. Wonderful people. Decent food, good bars. Like Minneapolis is it's a bigger city. Like it's a cool city.
Yeah.
And I just, obviously there's no AAU tournaments happening in Minneapolis, so I don't think anybody actually knows about it. But hey, I mean, Chet Holmgren's been a pretty good ambassador, so maybe that's going to change.
And Paige Beckers. I mean,
and Anthony Edwards, frankly.
And Jalen Suggs.
Yep.
There are certain markets that I think Yeah. I think there are I think pretty much every market to some degree has guys that once they're there, they're like, oh, it's actually pretty fine. It's actually pretty good here. They're maybe not going to live there forever, but like, what's like an exception to that for you?
Utah.
Okay. Yeah. Unless you really love the outdoors.
Yeah, which none of these NBA players do. They like to play indoors. Even NBA players don't even want to play basketball outdoors.
No.
They want to play indoors. They want indoor courts.
Yeah, and the altitude thing it's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's the one where you're like, I don't know. Like Alec Burks kind of liked Utah. But you're like, yeah, if you talk to Alec Burks, you're like, yeah, I could see why you liked it there.
I mean, George Hill really liked Indiana, but then like George Hill's actually like a bow hunter. He's like from there, I think. But he also just like loves the outdoors. Like he likes bow hunting.
Yeah.
So it's like that like fits. It's not like NBA player who likes going to clubs. It's like, well, you're probably not gonna like Salt Lake City. And that's like most NBA players I think prefer clubs over like being in some trees.
And just being able and the other it's very like
it's white.
Stuff closes really early, and just by the nature of the NBA calendar and the schedule that an NBA player keeps, you're out late. Right?
Yeah.
Like you can't go to bed right away. You go get dinner after a game.
Yeah.
Nothing's open.
There's like there's like a whole like recovery routine. You have to get your food.
Right.
You like, yeah. I mean, by the time you like leave a game, it's like 11 o'clock. Even if you didn't play, like you still take a shower after the game. You get dressed. Like it's like probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock at the earliest. You're leaving the arena.
Yeah, you're somewhere at the earliest by 11.
Yeah.
At the earliest.
Yeah.
And stuff closes at like 9 in Salt Lake City. I feel like we shit on Utah too much in this podcast.
Here's the thing. I love this. I love Salt Lake City, but I'm a
fan.
Yeah, I love Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Big fan.
Tell me the one thing that you like about Salt Lake City.
I can give you 5.
Okay, I don't know if we have that much time.
Okay, I'll give okay. Incredible coffee shops in Salt Lake City.
Agreed. Yes.
Every coffee shop I went to killed it. Had unique lattes. Had really good food selections. Really, really good coffee shop scene in Salt Lake City.
One of the best enchiladas I've ever had in my life was in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, you know what? You told me about this, and I couldn't get to the restaurant you recommended, but it's on my list. I'm probably going. I'll be there at least once this year, maybe twice. I have family out there now. Good
for you.
Yeah, I had both the wedding and then there's like a work thing later in the year that I think might go through Salt Lake at the end of it. I'm like, no one else is going to want to go to Salt Lake. So I'll be like, I will go to Salt Lake.
You will now be the Utah ambassador. There it is.
Yeah, I'll take the gig. I'll get a Mammoth jersey.
Oh, right, the hockey team. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Well, it looks like clip art. Anyway, on that note, by the way, Seattle going to be the next city NBA players feel about this way. That's my prediction. Having been to Seattle one time, that's my prediction. I'm on the record about this. Also a good coffee city. It's just like, do hipsters who are beat reporters like this, then NBA players will not. It's usually a good rule of thumb. But I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. Back at you next week. Maybe we'll have an NBA Finals to preview. I think we will.
We will, for sure. We just
don't know who it will be. But next week, NBA Finals preview coming. I'm guessing Indiana and Oklahoma City. Talk to you then. Enjoy the hoops. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.